Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
May I now request the second speaker, Professor Kamal Preet Kochar. Professor Kochar is faculty at Department of Physiology at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. She also has degrees in Master of English and holds a diploma in French and Pragya in Hindi. She is pursuing research in educational leadership, clinical psychology, cognitive psychology, and her other areas of interest are nutrition, Indian diet, integrative physiology, ethics and medical education, medical humanities, etc. May I now request Madam Kochar to please deliver the talk.
Good afternoon, distinguished panel on the dais, and greetings to all dignitaries present as well as dear delegates. In brief, my introduction is that I have two children. One is nutrition and the other is cognitive neurophysiology. I did after my MD, I'm a medical teacher here. I did my PhD in Indian dietary spices, where my research interests were stimulated that what is so special about Indian diet. Please don't mind my throat. One was dietary spices. The other was, as we have been talking since yesterday, on fermented foods. So I will be now talking about how the use of probiotics can give us more evidence-based research in the realms of two important disorders. One are neurodevelopmental disorders and the other are neurodegenerative disorders. And in the era of blood markers being saturated with many confounding results, how we can develop electrophysiological markers and optical markers for distinguishing the brain activity during these interventions. Yes, I will just tell you which one to. 2018 probiotics, 2018. This 2018, yeah. So I will make it slightly short because many things were discussed by previous speakers, especially Dr. Shefali Gulati. So the main thing we all know is the gut-brain axis and the brain-gut axis. Many of the molecules or bioactive substances present in food are similar to substances which act as either neurotransmitters or as co-transmitters, or their products as small peptides, small saccharides, and cytokines. And one word only about psychobiotics, that this is a new term emerging which tells us how the probiotics affect not only the cellular and physical health, but especially the mental health, things which have multidimensional ramifications. So when the microbiota change, there are instances of changes occurring in the gut membrane. One important running motif is a substance called synuclein, and we many times call brain disorders as synucleinopathies, especially Parkinson's disease. Another thing is that there are a lot more things common to neurodevelopmental as well as neurodegenerative disorders, that our default mode networks in the brain are not functioning as well. It is difficult to switch off, okay? And these are the neurophysiological correlates. Now I will tell you how, I'm not going into this, about what are the various methods and what are the various areas or interfaces where probiotics could work. I only want to tell a few things, that many studies show that autism spectrum disorder children, they have low normal immunoglobulins, so their immune axis, their brain axis, their cutaneous nervous system, where we have a microbiome, as well as their wiring is different. So, some children have low secretory immunoglobulins, predisposing them to eruptions in the skin or respiratory and GI infections. So, they have more inflammation, which is seen, and abnormal lymphocyte profiles, as well as abnormal cytokine profiles. Functional future therapies might involve modifying the neuroglial responses. Neuroglia in the brain we know, and now we know about satellite cells in the mucosa, and this is a very, very hot area these days, that how the neuroglial cells in the brain provide not only structural but functional support in many, many diverse ways, and overactivity of immune system and overactive innate inflammatory responses, as well as immune dysregulation. So how gut bacteria can be used for this corrective therapy, and this is fine. So the food we eat, as many young students here showed about the Hippocrates saying, the important thing is that the child, growing child or developmental years, how food affects and how probiotics affect. So leaky gut we have been talking about, nutrient deficiencies we've been talking about, as well as overgrowth of fungi, yeasts, as well as toxicity and poor detoxification mechanisms are present in such children, as well as epigenetic mechanisms, and before that faulty methylation and sulfation, as well as acetylation, deacetylation of the histones. This is where the nature endowed is present, and the nurture can affect by either microRNAs or silencing RNAs, and this is important. So when these children feel better, they would learn better. So I'm trying to tell you the soft improvements which we can do in their functional learning outcomes as well. And this we all know are key nutrients for brain development, fermented foods, and psychobiotics. And this is a slide I presented last time when we were discussing in the probiotics conference in Delhi about cognitive function improvement. So now just about genetic predispositions combined with environmental factors. They will create this kind of disordered biochemistry, and how nutrition affects this. The previous viewpoint was that neurodevelopmental or pervasive developmental disorders or autism spectrum disorders or even attention deficit hyperactivity, we cannot fix the brain abnormality, so you are born with. Many clinicians still say that, but we are physiologists. We deal with the range which can be modified. You know, we don't deal with single values. We deal with all the gamut of physiological situations, and therefore we feel that children with autism have metabolic problems which can be diagnosed and treated, and these fixed broken biochemical pathways these broken biochemical pathways can be fixed. And how? By paying attention to not just the psychiatric or neurodevelopmental issues, but to the medical issues, we can significantly improve their functional outcomes in the quality of life and level of functioning. Okay, sorry. So we all know that bacteria make many kind of brain chemicals. I am not going into that. We have been educated enough. The symptoms which the diet may improve: ability to focus, eye contact, aggression. We have a small cognitive neurophysiology lab here where we do non-invasive neuroimaging by optical imaging at the near infrared spectrum, which can be considered a good marker to measure attention, as well as visual tracking we do so that we can see how attention is improving. So we are giving you tools and techniques to assess evidence-based probiotic benefits. So this also was a hypothesis. So there are many things which have been already discussed that which we don't know, and these have to be incorporated into any good study design. So I will run through this. Alterations in behavior, alterations in cognition, emotion, as well as pain responses have been seen. One of our posters outside is also about a systematic review there. So up till now, the methods to study brain-gut axis were these. We have introduced a new technique which is 20 years old, which we call FNIRS, functional near-infrared spectroscopy, which gives a much earlier, better temporal resolution, though the structural resolution is not as good as fMRI, but it serves as a real-time online marker of improvement